Welcome back to the Film Fanatic channel. This is my continuation of talking about my favorite television show of all time, the one and only True Detective. This is, out of all of the movies and things that I own, this is one of my most prized possessions. I think the other day, or actually a couple weeks ago, somebody was asking me about, being that they know that I collect, a lot of movies, and they were talking about some of the movies that I felt were some of the best in my collection, as far as the overall packaging and whatnot. And I remember, and there's quite a few. I mean, I there's a lot of movies that I've gotten over these past few years that I'm just blown away by. But the one movie I did name that I felt was like kind of the the creme de la creme is the Apocalypse Now Redux version that I have, and it's got the extended cut, and it's close to 4 hours long, and there are, there's probably shit, 6 hours of special features on there, and it's amazing. And but the other one, one of the other, and again, there's many other movies and things in my collection that I also put in high regard. That's probably one of my Apocalypse Now is probably one of my most prized possessions. If not it might be the most prized. It's hard to say, but there are equally a bunch of other movies that I have that I hold in that higher regard, as far as actually owning them. But I have to say, True Detective is up there also. This amazing Blu-ray edition. The thing that's so amazing about seeing this on Blu-ray is that this is not only is the writing and the acting and the crafting of this story just brilliant, but the visual, the direction, the cinematography of this movie is amazing. The music, the music was composed and curated by the amazing and incredible musician T-Bone Barnett, and it is it's such a feast for the senses also. And again, I saw this series probably about before I bought this Blu-ray edition. I probably saw this. Well, I had seen it on DVD. I had rented the season of True Detective on DVD. But what an amazing upgrade on Blu-ray! I mean, it's visually, it's absolutely stunning. The cinematography is just unbelievable. Again, the thing that I love about this series is that the slow burn nature of it, just how dark it really does get, and it is such a I mean, every character in this series just pops and is so alive, and it's gorgeous. It's just absolutely gorgeous. The other thing too, I find that another reason why I'm so attracted to this show and is because like I kind of a long history with New Orleans, because that is where this series takes place. And my brother, uh, who he's always basically lived down south for most of his life. Now he's married now, and he lives in Tennessee. And I've been down there. He lives right outside of Nashville. He lived in South Carolina for a long time also, and but for many years he lived in New Orleans, and he lived, or I should say, in Louisiana. He lived in the outskirts. He lived in this town that doesn't exist anymore because it was wiped off the map because of the hurricanes. Particularly, I believe it was Hurricane Katrina wiped it off the map. But he lived in this small, you know, super isolated town with his then wife, called Grand Isle, Louisiana. And as a kid, when, because again, my brother, was out of, well, kind of out of the picture for a long time as far as where he lived. We lived together for a brief time when I was a very little kid, but then he moved away. And since, for years and years and years, he's always lived down south. But as a kid, as a family, we would always go down south to visit him, and we used to go down to Louisiana quite a bit. And in particular, like I have so many memories of going to Grand Isle, Louisiana, as a kid all the time, and it always had this effect on me. Like I always, and I think it really shaped my love. Like I love hot weather. I don't really do very well with cold weather. I've always been a person who loves like hot climates or warm climates. And going down south and spending a lot of time down south, like we went on a bunch of trips to the Carolinas and Louisiana and down to Georgia and Virginia a lot when I was a kid. But we spent most of the time going down to Louisiana to visit him and things like that. Um, I did that at a really, really young age, and I felt like that really gave me a love for the hot weather. And the other thing that is so it was such an impressionable time because all of the times we went down there, I loved the Southern culture to a degree. I love the food, um, and obviously the music. I mean, Louisiana's or New Orleans in particular is one of the most his historically, it's one of the most important. It's probably historically, as far as the United States goes, it's the most, it's kind of the mecca for music and culture. And so, it's pretty much the history is so deep and rich for so many reasons, giving birth to American jazz and so many different things. But I remember as a kid going down there, and there was always, that those aspects that were attractive to me. But I always felt like there was, like you were going into this you know, unknown land that always seemed a little bit frightening. There was always, you know, like you were stepping back in a time machine. It didn't have, it was such an isolated area. It was obviously incredibly close to the ocean. It was, there was a lot of extreme poverty, which I had never been exposed to. But you also had, the influence of other religions, the Santeria and voodoo and all of these other things that were taking place, that Louisiana gave birth to. Um, so there was always this sense of darkness whenever I would go there and uneasiness. It wasn't a place. I mean, New Orleans is a tourist area, obviously, but these particular locations I remember visiting as a kid, it wasn't a place where tourists would go. This was like on the dark outskirts of the city, and where people were pretty much living off the grid, and there was extreme poverty, and people had no real connection to kind of the modern times. So, but there was always this sense of like some kind of impending doom or darkness whenever we would go there. And I remember that always kind of sticking in, with me. Another movie that I feel like completely nails that whole kind of vibe is a movie that I love to death, Angel Heart, with Mickey Rourke and Robert De Niro and Lisa Bonet. Like that movie completely captures that. But the thing that with True Detective is it is like it for me. It's like stepping back into that zone of when I was a kid. Because I remember those experiences of going there, and it just left such an impression on me. With this like sense with the extreme heat. We had some really amazing food, but there was like this sense of darkness underneath everything. So that's one of the reasons I think too why I just love this show, because I have so many memories from my childhood of going there at such a young and kind of impressionable age. So today's show, and again, this is a continuation in the series of where I'm talking about each individual episode in for True Detective season one. So today we arrive at episode three, and it's entitled "The Locked Room." So in episode three, the storyline continues. Obviously, Cole and Martin finally get a new wind in the case, and they confirm they're at a place where they can confirm that there's a suspect. Marilyn's mistress gets on with somebody else, leaving him furious. Cole's theory becomes increasingly more convincing than ever. Cole and Hart continue their investigation. They track down the minister who used the church, but learned that it had been abandoned for 4 months before it succumbed to fire. The local authorities blame the fire on teenagers, but it's still an open case. Cole combs through the old fire, searching for any connections to the open case. He then discovers that he found a 2-year-old case that appears similar, and sets out to find the dead girl's boyfriend, Reggie Ledoux, who has a record and knew Charles Lang in prison. Maggie Hart sets Maggie Hart sets Cole up on a date with four of them to go to a bar, and Martin sees the mistress, Lisa, out on a date with someone else. In the present day, Cole explains his interrogation technique, which even Hart admits is different but effective. Hart's recollection of his family life is somewhat skewed. Again, an amazing episode. Thank you. See you next time. Peace.